Hello everyone, and welcome to my Bold and Beautiful for You channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. The Bold and the Beautiful has never shied away from tragedy, but the storyline surrounding Beth's sudden death has shaken the canvas to its very core, not only because the loss of a child is one of the most heartbreaking arcs the show can deliver, but because from the moment the news broke, whispered first by stunned hospital staff, then confirmed by a devastated Liam and the visibly trembling Hope, there has been a chilling undercurrent of mystery, suspicion, and strange inconsistencies that have left viewers questioning whether the tragedy was as straightforward as it seemed, because Beth Spencer, a child beloved not only by her parents but by the entire extended Forrester Logan Spencer circle, was seemingly healthy, thriving, and full of life only days before her sudden passing, and yet here the characters were, grappling with an avalanche of unanswered questions, concealed details, odd medical anomalies, and split-second decisions that did not align with the medical history the audience believed they understood, and it was in the chaotic aftermath of that night, sirens screaming in the distance, Hope's agonized screams echoing through the corridors, Liam collapsing against the cold tile floor while Brooke arrived desperate to hold her daughter, that the true strangeness began to seep through the cracks, beginning with the fact that the doctor in charge, an unfamiliar figure with a calm demeanor, delivered the news with such clinical detachment that even Ridge commented. It felt rehearsed, as though someone had prepared him for a scenario he wasn't supposed to question, and when he attempted to explain the medical cause, describing an unanticipated cardiopulmonary failure that no test had predicted, he gave vague terminology that sent Bridget, who happened to arrive moments later, into immediate skepticism, asking for reports, charts, test results, anything concrete, only to be told that certain lab numbers had gone missing due to a supposed electronic malfunction in the hospital system, and as the family attempted to process this, a power flicker shook the building, monitors rebooted, alarms blared without cause, and the audience understood this was not just a tragedy but a puzzle wrapped in panic, because what hospital loses vital information in the middle of a child's emergency unless something the public was not meant to see was happening behind the scenes, and soon thereafter, whispers began circulating that Beth had been seen alive for a full 3 minutes after her recorded time of death, reported by a nurse who claimed to hear her heartbeat faintly right before an attending physician ushered her out of the room with unexpected force, insisting she had misheard, but the nurse told Donna later she knew what she heard, that something about Beth's tiny body was still fighting, and yet someone was determined to declare her gone, and the strangeness did not stop there, for later that same night, Steffy, who had come to support Liam and Hope despite the emotional complexity of their histories, crossed paths with an intern she didn't recognize, a young man who seemed nervous, constantly glancing at the security cameras and clutching a sealed envelope he refused to set down even when asked by security to verify who he was, and when Steffy approached him, he jolted as if burned, mumbling something about needing to deliver this before it's too late, and disappeared down a restricted hallway moments before a code blue was announced for another patient, and security footage, once Billy Spencer demanded the chief of staff review it, showed that very intern entering Beth's treatment room after the official time of death, staying there for 47 seconds, then exiting with the envelope missing, and although the footage abruptly cut out after he rounded the corner, the fact that he had gained unauthorized access to a deceased child's room sent alarms throughout the family, particularly Liam, whose grief turned into anger, confusion, panic, and a renewed determination to find out what had happened during those final minutes, and the more he pressed hospital administration for answers, the more evasive they became, offering practiced condolences but no transparency, which only deepened the mystery, especially as Hope recalled details she had previously overlooked, like the way the attending pediatric specialist avoided eye contact, how the charge nurse seemed uneasy every time Hope asked about Beth's test results from the week before, tests that had been perfectly normal according to the cheerful voicemail left by the pediatrician only days earlier, and yet the official report claimed Beth had shown early markers of systemic weakness, something no one had mentioned before despite their frequency of checkups, and when Brooke demanded to see the pediatrician personally, she was told he had taken an unexpected leave of absence, though his car still sat in the hospital parking lot, his office had not been cleared, and a janitor quietly revealed to Ridge that he had seen the doctor arguing with someone in a suit the night before Beth's death, using phrases like "I won't falsify anything" and "you can't force this." But the moment the janitor tried to record the conversation, the suited man snatched his phone, threw it to the ground, and stormed out, making the janitor too frightened to report the incident, which added another eerie layer to the puzzle, because what medical professional would be pressured to falsify documents unless there was a much larger secret looming over this child's sudden passing? And soon the rumors reached Bill Spencer, who arrived at the hospital like a tempest, demanding immediate access to every lab, every report, every staff member who interacted with Beth during her final hours. And when he was stonewalled, he called his security team, insisting that this wasn't just a tragedy but a cover-up, reminding everyone within earshot that his granddaughter deserved the truth no matter how dark it was, and his suspicions only intensified when he spoke to the night shift security officer, who admitted he had been instructed to ignore certain alerts from the pediatric wing shortly before Beth coded, instructions he found strange but obeyed because the order came from someone well above his pay grade. And when Bill asked who issued the order, the guard hesitated before stating that the request was flagged under an administrative override with no name attached, just a generic clearance tag used only in severe emergencies or situations requiring anonymity, like when VIP patients stayed at the hospital. But no such patient had been admitted that night. And then there was Hope, who continued to replay every moment over and over, unable to reconcile the odd details she was beginning to recall, like the way the room smelled faintly of an unfamiliar antiseptic she had never encountered before, or how a tray of instruments had been knocked to the floor but no one seemed willing to explain why, and especially how one of Beth's bracelets, a gift from Kelly, a small charm with their initials, had disappeared from her wrist. And when she asked the staff about it, they all claimed they had never seen it, prompting Steffy to comfort her but also making Steffy herself question what was being hidden, because Steffy had lost a daughter once under questionable circumstances as well and knew the feeling of being lied to for the sake of hospital protocol, and it was during a confrontation between Brooke and the chief administrator that an even more unsettling detail emerged. Beth had been moved between two different treatment rooms during the emergency, something that is rarely done for an infant mid-crisis unless there is faulty equipment, which Brooke pressed them on, demanding to know precisely what malfunction had occurred. But instead of answering, the administrator gave a vague excuse about optimization of care, which only enraged Brooke further, because optimization is not a medical term used during emergency resuscitation, and she knew it, Bridget knew it, and even Finn, who arrived after receiving a frantic call from Ridge, admitted the decision seemed bizarre, prompting him to request permission to review the monitors and logs himself, but he too was denied access, denied even as a licensed doctor and family member, because the hospital claimed the records were under internal review, a phrase that sent chills down everyone's spine, because internal reviews are typically triggered by malpractice concerns, meaning someone on staff might have made a fatal error or worse, intentionally concealed one. And then came the whisper that changed everything. A junior nurse, trembling and terrified, confessed to Donna that she had overheard two doctors arguing about a dosage given to Beth, something about a medication not typically administered to infants, a medication that had been ordered without parental consent, and although the nurse did not know what it was, she remembered the phrase adjusted levels, which Bridget recognized immediately as terminology associated with immune-based experimental treatments. And when she brought this information to Brooke demanded to know who authorized such an experimental dosage, but again, the hospital stonewalled, insisting no such medication had been administered, even though the nurse swore she saw the vial label herself, and the situation escalated even further when Liam discovered that Beth's medical bracelet had been replaced at some point during the night, something that should never occur unless there was a clerical error, identity confusion, or intentional tampering. And when he cross-checked the bracelet number against the system, it did not match Beth's original medical ID, meaning someone had switched her records, swapped her tracking information, or, worst of all, intentionally misidentified her body. And when he confronted the morgue attendant, the man nervously insisted everything was correct, but the panic in his eyes told Liam something was very wrong, and it was only after Bill applied pressure that the attendant admitted the hospital had briefly misplaced Beth's file, accidentally linking her to another infant for approximately 14 minutes, a staggering breach that sent the family spiraling into hysteria. Because how does a supposedly modern hospital misfile an infant's identity during the most crucial moments unless something far more sinister was happening behind the scenes? And then, just when the family thought the situation could not get any stranger, a mysterious phone call came to Hope's phone late at night from an unknown number, and when she answered, all she heard was a panicked whisper, "Beth isn't gone, don't trust them," followed by a click, leaving Hope shaking, sobbing, screaming for Liam to wake up and listen as she replayed the call, and although Liam tried to calm her, the tremor in his voice revealed he was just as shaken, because Hope had not told anyone outside her immediate family about the missing records, the glitching monitors, the strange inconsistencies, and yet someone out there clearly knew something, and this phone call sparked a wildfire of suspicion, pushing Brooke, Ridge, Steffy, Finn, Liam, and Bill into full investigative mode, each determined to uncover the truth even if it meant confronting the darkest corners of Los Angeles's medical network, because every new clue, every missing report, every vanishing staff member, like the pediatrician whose abrupt leave now seemed suspiciously like a forced disappearance, painted a picture that Beth's death may not have been a sudden medical crisis at all, but something orchestrated, covered up, or connected to a shadowy motive none of them yet fully understood, and as the family prepared for the memorial, standing in the Forrester mansion with the weight of grief pressing upon their chests, they each silently acknowledged the same truth: too many questions remained unanswered, too many details did not add up, and too many strange events had occurred for this to be a coincidence, meaning the story of Beth's sudden death was only beginning, and the horrifying, heartbreaking, earth-shattering revelations that awaited them would shake the entire canvas, rewire alliances, destroy trust, and possibly expose secrets that had been buried long before Beth was ever born, because on the bold and the beautiful, nothing, especially a child's death, is ever as simple, as final, or as accidental as it appears. The Bold and the Beautiful took its audience by storm this week with a storyline so shocking, so deeply haunting, that even longtime fans who thought they had seen every possible twist from the Forrester, Logan, and Spencer families found themselves breathless. Beth Spencer's sudden death, a tragedy that ripped through the core of the Logan family, was not what it seemed. What began as a simple, devastating loss soon spiraled into one of the most mysterious, layered, and emotionally raw storylines the show has delivered in years. From the moment Hope Logan Spencer collapsed into Liam's arms, screaming that something wasn't right with their daughter's accident, viewers sensed that a deeper, darker force was at play. The official story stated that Beth had suffered a sudden medical crisis while away on a field trip, a tragic, unexpected episode that no one could have predicted, but as details slowly trickled out, contradictions emerged. How did a healthy young girl, full of life, laughter, and boundless energy, suddenly go from giggling at breakfast to being pronounced dead by afternoon? Why were hospital reports sealed so quickly? And why did Ridge Forrester seem unusually tense when Brooke pressed him about what Finn might have found during the initial medical review? It was the kind of slow-burning, emotional mystery that defined the Bold and the Beautiful's finest eras, one that blurred the line between heartbreak and conspiracy. Hope's descent into grief was immediate and all-consuming, but her instincts as a mother, that deep, almost supernatural intuition that had guided her through so many of life's battles, refused to let her accept what she was being told. She replayed every phone call, every word from the authorities, every moment of that fateful day, and something didn't fit. The timeline was wrong. The location where Beth supposedly collapsed was isolated, an area with poor cell reception, and yet the ambulance had arrived too quickly, almost as if it were waiting nearby. Liam, desperate to comfort his wife but also wary of reopening a wound so raw, begged her to rest, but Hope couldn't. Not when every night she dreamed of Beth calling out to her, not in pain, but in confusion, as if she were lost somewhere, waiting for her mother to find her. That haunting mother's instinct became the driving force of the storyline, pulling Hope into a web of lies and hidden motives that reached far beyond what anyone could have imagined. And at the center of that web, quietly pulling strings, was a name that sent shivers through the audience the moment it was whispered: Flo Fulton. Flo's reappearance in Los Angeles had already raised eyebrows. Claiming she had returned to make amends for the pain she caused years ago when she was part of the original baby switch scandal involving Beth, Flo presented herself as remorseful and eager to help Hope through her grief. But as her interactions grew stranger, her eyes darting away when Hope mentioned the hospital, her hand trembling when Liam brought up the word autopsy, even Wyatt began to notice something was off. Flo wasn't just guilty, she was terrified. Behind closed doors, she received cryptic phone calls, whispered arguments that ended in tears, and late-night drives to locations no one could identify. Meanwhile, Dr. John Finnegan, who had initially overseen Beth's final medical report, began to feel an unease he couldn't shake. Some of the test results didn't match up. Lab samples were mislabeled. Blood work appeared to have been altered. And when he tried to access the hospital's digital records for review, he discovered that the files had been locked under a restricted access code, one belonging to none other than Lee Finnegan. Lee's involvement added another explosive layer to the already combustible situation. When Finn confronted his mother, she was cold, evasive, and defensive, insisting that Hope and Liam should accept the facts and stop chasing ghosts. But Lee's demeanor told another story, a flicker of guilt, a shadow of fear behind her controlled composure. Was she protecting someone? Or had she, once again, taken matters into her own hands in the name of saving a child, as she had done years earlier with Finn and later with Sheila? As the layers peeled back, it became clear that this wasn't simply a tragic death. It was a cover-up. But who, and what, were they covering up? Hope's investigation led her down a dangerous path, one that threatened to destroy every fragile alliance left in Los Angeles. She started with the hospital, pulling every contact she had, even appealing to Steffy Forrester Finnegan for help, despite their rocky history. Surprisingly, Steffy agreed. Though rivals in love and philosophy, Steffy couldn't bear to see Hope suffer, and Finn's strange behavior had already made her suspicious. Together, these two women, so often at odds, became reluctant allies, united by maternal instinct and a shared sense that something unspeakable had happened to Beth. Their uneasy partnership gave the storyline a sharp, emotional tension, scenes of them arguing one minute and comforting each other the next, their shared pain binding them in ways neither could have foreseen. But as they dug deeper, someone was watching. Security footage from the hospital went missing. A nurse who had been on duty that day suddenly transferred to another city. And when Hope received an anonymous envelope at the cabin, containing a blurry photo of Beth in what looked like a hospital bed taken after the time she was declared dead, everything changed. The photo, though grainy, showed Beth's wrist wearing a hospital ID tag with her name misspelled, Beth Spenson. It was the single piece of evidence that shattered Hope's reality. "She's alive," Hope whispered, her voice trembling, as Liam stared in disbelief. But who sent the photo? And why now? The plot thickened when Deacon Sharp overheard a conversation at Il Giardino between Sheila Carter and a mysterious man in a gray suit. The words "the girl" and "the transfer" slipped out before Sheila noticed him listening. When Deacon pressed her later, Sheila became unusually defensive, insisting she had nothing to do with Hope's tragedy but couldn't meet his eyes. Yet Sheila, for once, might not have been lying. There were rumors of a black market medical program, a covert operation that abducted patients declared legally dead and used them in experimental treatments. A program with connections stretching into international pharmaceutical corporations and shadow research groups. And the more Hope and Finn looked, the more every lead pointed to something that defied belief. Beth hadn't died, she had been taken. As the bold and the beautiful delved into the mystery, the tone shifted from mourning to psychological suspense. Finn's medical expertise became the key to decoding the puzzle, revealing that the supposed medical crisis was staged, induced by a rare compound found only in experimental sedatives. Lee's signature appeared on the drug release form, but her explanation didn't add up. When confronted, she finally broke down, confessing that she had been coerced by someone she thought was dead, Reese Buckingham. The man responsible for the original baby switch had returned, alive, operating under a new identity, blackmailing Lee into falsifying records in exchange for sparing her medical license and her freedom. He had manipulated the system, faked Beth's death, and transferred her to a remote rehabilitation facility under a different name. His motive? Money, and revenge. Years of humiliation had hardened him into something darker, and now he wanted the Logans to suffer as he once did. But not everyone believed Lee's confession. Steffy suspected there was more, that Lee wasn't just coerced, but complicit. And when Ridge found secret financial transactions between Lee's account and an offshore company linked to Reese, the entire Forrester and Finnegan families were thrown into turmoil. Was Lee working with Reese to fund illegal experiments using Beth as a test subject? The questions tore Finn apart. He loved his mother but couldn't ignore the evidence. Hope, meanwhile, was unraveling, her nights filled with dreams of Beth crying out for her days consumed by the search for proof. Liam, terrified that Hope was losing herself, considered involving authorities, but his hesitation cost them precious time. Because as the truth neared the surface, someone began eliminating loose ends. The nurse who transferred out of town? Found dead in a car accident. The man who processed Beth's official death certificate? Missing. And when Flo tried to leave Los Angeles, her car exploded in a fiery crash that left no remains. Each new tragedy sent ripples of paranoia through the cast, with even Brooke fearing for her daughter's safety. Brooke and Ridge's marriage once again crumbled under the weight of secrets. She accused him of covering up something to protect Steffy's in-laws, while Ridge insisted he was just trying to shield their families from more pain. Meanwhile, Taylor Hayes returned to Los Angeles, sensing that her son Finn was caught in something dangerous. Her re-entry reignited old rivalries but also brought the wisdom and compassion Hope needed. Taylor believed Hope's intuition and warned Finn, "If you don't follow this, you'll lose more than your mother, you'll lose your soul." The turning point came when Finn discovered a hidden encrypted server within the hospital's system containing Project BETH files. The acronym stood for Bioengineered Therapeutic Healing, a secret program testing advanced regenerative medicine. Photos within the files confirmed it. Beth was alive, held under the alias Emma Cole, subjected to experimental treatment designed to cure incurable genetic conditions. The realization was horrifying. Someone had used Hope's daughter as a medical experiment. And though Finn wanted to expose everything, Lee begged him not to. "You don't understand, John," she pleaded, "what they're doing could change the future of medicine." But Finn's moral compass wouldn't bend. He and Hope joined forces to locate the facility, leading to an explosive climax set in a secluded research compound outside Los Angeles. In one of the most gripping sequences the show has ever delivered, Hope and Finn infiltrated the compound disguised as medical staff, only to find themselves surrounded by armed guards. Inside, they found rows of sedated patients, and among them, Beth. Pale, fragile, but alive. Hope's sobs filled the sterile air as she cradled her daughter, whispering, "Mommy's here, sweetheart." But before they could escape, Reese Buckingham emerged from the shadows, holding a gun. "You shouldn't have come here," he hissed. The standoff was intense, Finn shielding Hope, Reese shouting about his ruined life, and Hope pleading for her child. Just as he pulled the trigger, a shot rang out, and it wasn't his. Sheila Carter appeared, gun in hand, having tracked them after overhearing Deacon's suspicions. She shot Reese in the shoulder, saving Hope and Finn, a shocking twist that blurred the lines between villain and savior yet again.